So this is really just a continuation of learning to breathe naturally. Everybody able to hear me okay from where you are? If at any point I'm not speaking and projecting because my voice can tend to get soft, just sort of raise your hand or put it near your ear or something if you're still awake. And it's okay. I mean, this is the best part of this class. It's okay to fall asleep. The whole idea is we're teaching your brain how to let go and fall asleep over and over to retrain those patterns that currently keep you awake. So we're going to explore the 3 breathing spaces. You have a lower breathing space, a middle breathing space, and an upper breathing space. And these are really just phrases for the sound or sleep method. If you talk to a doctor, they're not going to know what you're talking about. So it's just sort of for the purpose of explaining them. And what I want you to do is place your hands on your lower abdomen so that maybe the tips of either your middle finger or your pointer finger touch in the middle. Yeah. And then they're just resting below your belly button, somewhere between your pubic bone and your belly button. If you're able to do that and let your elbows rest on the floor, that's ideal. If it's too hard to have your fingertips touch, then don't worry too much about having them touch. It's kind of nice if they can for this. And then just again begin to feel the breath coming in and out naturally, easily, softly, effortlessly. And just feel the very small amount of movement in your lower abdomen. It's interesting, in our world we're often taught to kind of hold our bellies in, particularly women. And so there can be some constriction in this area. But mechanically what happens is the diaphragm that you've all heard of attaches to your very lowest ribs. And when the diaphragm contracts, that's your inhalation. So there's a little bit of muscular activity contracting the diaphragm with the inhalation, and then it relaxes with the exhalation. And what the diaphragm does is it actually pulls down into your abdomen. So it draws the air into the lungs and presses down into kind of your stomach and guts and liver and intestines and all that, those goodies down there. So if your lower belly is soft, then there's space for all of that to expand outward or forward when you're inhaling. So when people teach abdominal breathing, has anybody ever been taught abdominal breathing? Yeah. So it's really just letting those muscles go so there's space for your organs when your diaphragm smushes them with the inhalation. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you're just feeling that lifting and lowering of your lower belly with each breath. And you might begin to notice that the fingers on your belly are raising and lowering. And that each time your belly raises, your fingers might spread apart just a little bit. So there might be less contact with the fingertips on the inhalation, and then a little more contact of the fingertips with the exhalation. And with any of these exercises, if you don't feel exactly what I'm describing, don't worry. It's definitely not a precise science. You just want to get the general idea, fill in the gaps, make it your own, work less, play more, breathe easy. You really can't get it wrong. Just listening, feeling, observing. And if your mind begins to wander, you come back to the breath and the gentle raising and lowering of your fingertips. The sensation of them parting and coming back together. Very, very simple. And then just take your hands off your belly and let them rest on the floor. And we'll take several breaths just doing nothing. You might still be following the breath. You might be feeling the floor. And then bring your hands together in what we're going to call the middle breathing space. So that basically your hands cradle the lowest ribs. So it's kind of above your belly button, but below the breasts. Resting on the ribs. Again, if it's easy to let your elbows rest on the floor and let your fingertips touch in some way, the tips might touch of the pointer finger or the index finger, probably one or the other, but if both of them touch, that's fine too. Or maybe because of the length of your arms, your fingers kind of interlace. That's fine. As long as you can allow for some movement of the fingers to slide in and out as they follow the inhalation, the movement of those lower ribs, the exhalation. Just feeling the rhythm, noticing the length of the inhalation, the length of the exhalation. Maybe you take longer to inhale than you do to exhale. Maybe it feels exactly the same. Then there's that kind of interesting place where the breath transitions. So as you exhale, often there's a little moment, a little pause before the next inhalation. There doesn't have to be, so there's no wrong if you don't notice that. But sometimes as you get softer, shallower, lighter and easier with your breathing, that pause can begin to emerge until the next inhalation arises naturally and easily. Sometimes there's even a pause at the top of the inhalation before the exhalation. In my experience, this is a little less common and briefer, if at all. I've heard it described as driving over a hill. So if your inhalation is like driving up a hill, and your exhalation is rolling back down the other side of the hill, there's that moment, that brief moment where you're neither going up nor down, neither breathing in nor out. Just following the breath. The easiest, most natural thing you can do. Good, and then just separate your hands again, let them rest on the floor. If at any point you get uncomfortable on the floor, bend your knees, roll on your side, taking care of you. And as you rest with your hands off of your abdomen, just notice the sensation between your lower breathing space and your middle breathing space. Is there sort of a shadow remaining of your hands having been there? Is it easier to feel the breath in one space or the other? As you feel the movement in your lower abdomen, in the middle area, do they both respond at the exact same time, expanding with the inhalation? Do they both relax at the same time with the exhalation? Maybe you just notice one begins to expand a little sooner than the other, or one relaxes with the exhalation a little sooner than the other. Good, and now place your hands on your chest, the upper breathing space. Kind of the same configuration. If you can find a way for the fingertips to touch, then do. But if it's too hard, I still want you to make sure your arms are relaxed, that you're not working your chest or shoulders too much. So just placing them kind of in the collarbone area, the upper ribs. Seeing if your fingertips touch easily. And then just following the inhalation, the exhalation. The very gentle and light lifting and lowering of your chest. Noticing the space between the fingertips. Do they get a little further apart with the inhalation? A little closer together with the exhalation. Noticing how much they rise and lower with the inhalation and exhalation. Maybe noticing, is it more or less in the upper breathing space than it was in the lower or the middle breathing spaces? Good, and finally just let your hands go. Rest at your sides. Continue feeling the breath in the lower breathing space, coming and going easily and naturally. The middle breathing space. And the upper breathing space. The easiest, most natural thing you can do, just letting the breath come and go, taking as much time as you need for each inhalation, each exhalation. and taking as much time as needed for each of the pauses. And just begin to count and follow the next 5 breaths. Beginning to wiggle your toes a little bit. Beginning to wiggle your fingers a little bit. Maybe rolling your head a little bit from side to side. Just lightly and gently feeling some movements in your body. Bending your knees. Gently opening your eyes. And just take as much time as you need to just kind of bring yourself back into the room. Eventually standing up, and after everyone's back with us, we'll get in a circle again.